All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. You know how we do things around here, digging into the tech that's shaping our world and today.
Yeah, it's a pretty fascinating one this time.
It really is. We're talking about online privacy, something I know a lot of us are thinking about these days. And, how do we keep our information safe and secure out there in the wild west of the internet?
Yeah, and it's only getting more and more important, with everything going on.
Exactly. So we found this really interesting article about a project that's trying to make one of the most well-known tools for online anonymity even better.
You're talking about the Tor network, right?
The one and only Tor, that network that lets you browse the internet anonymously, access those hidden websites you hear so much about.
Yeah, for journalists, activists, anybody who needs to keep their online activity under wraps, Tor is kind of the go-to tool.
Right, and it's been around for a while, but this project called Rye, it's trying to address some of the limitations of the current Tor software, and they're using a really interesting weapon of choice to do it.
And that weapon is
The Rust programming language.
Rust. Yeah, I've heard a lot of buzz about Rust lately. They say it's the future of software development or something like that.
Yeah, well, the article definitely makes it sound like it could be a game changer for Tor specifically.
Right.
So, what's the big problem that Rye is trying to solve with the current Tor setup?
Well, the biggest issue is that the current Tor software is written in the C programming language, which is a really old language, like decades old.
Right, C, it's like the granddaddy of programming languages.
It is, and it's been used for so many things, operating systems, web browsers, you name it. But C has one big Achilles heel, and that's memory safety.
Memory safety, that sounds a little technical. Can you break that down for us? Like, what does that actually mean for someone using Tor?
Sure. So imagine you're building a house, right? And you're using some old wood that's kind of rotted away in places that see it's been around forever. It's been used to build all sorts of amazing things, but it's got these weak spots, these vulnerabilities.
Gotcha. So in this analogy, the weak spots in the wood are like memory safety issues in the code.
Exactly. And in software, those vulnerabilities can be exploited by hackers to do things like crash a program or even worse, steal data.
And when we're talking about Tor, we're talking about people using it for really sensitive activities like whistleblowing or communicating in countries with strict censorship.
Right. So if Tor has these memory safety issues, it could put those users at risk. Their anonymity could be compromised, their data could be leaked, and that's a huge problem.
Yeah, that completely defeats the purpose of using Tor in the first place.
Yeah.
So how does Rust fix this problem? Is it like some kind of magical superwood that never rots?
Well, it's not exactly magic, but Rust is designed from the ground up with memory safety in mind. It's like using brand new, super strong materials to build that house you were talking about.
So no more rotted wood, no more memory safety issues.
Pretty much, yeah. Rust has all these built in checks and balances that make it really difficult for programmers to accidentally introduce those kinds of vulnerabilities.
So it's like Rust is the super strict building inspector, making sure everything is up to code.
Exactly. And that's why the people behind Rye think it's the perfect language for rebuilding Tor. They want to create a more secure and robust foundation for the entire network.
That makes a lot of sense. But the article did mention some people aren't totally convinced about Rust, right?
Yeah, there's this debate going on in the programming world. Some people think Rust is too new. It hasn't been battle tested enough. They prefer to stick with the tried and true languages like C.
Sort of like saying, hey, we've been building houses out of wood for centuries. Why change now?
Yeah, there's definitely some merit to that argument, but the potential benefits of Rust for something like Tor are huge. The article even quotes one of the Rye developers saying that Rust is the only language that can give us the level of security and reliability that we need.
So they're pretty confident in Rust's ability to make Tor safer, but is it going to actually make it better, like in terms of performance and speed?
Well, that's one of the most exciting things about Rye. It's not just about security. It's also about making Tor faster and more efficient, and that comes down to something called multi-threading.
Multi-threading. Right. I need another analogy here.
Right, imagine you're at the post office and there's only one person working behind the counter. That's how the old Tor software works. It can only handle one task at a time.
So everyone's stuck waiting in line for that one person to help them.
Exactly. Now imagine there are multiple people working behind the counter, all handling different tasks simultaneously. That's multi-threading. It allows Rye to take advantage of modern multi-core processors, which are like having multiple brains in your computer.
So Rye can do a lot more at once.
Yeah, it can process data faster, connect to more nodes, and overall just provide a smoother and more efficient experience for users.
So for the listener at home, this means browsing websites, downloading files, all of that stuff will be faster and more reliable, even when using Tor.
Exactly. And that's a big deal because one of the complaints about Tor has always been that it can be slow and clunky.
Yeah, anonymity is great, but nobody wants to wait 5 minutes for a web page to load.
Right. With Rye, the goal is to have the best of both worlds, strong security and fast performance.
I like the sound of that. So the article actually shows Rye in action, right? They have a little demo of what it can do.
Yeah, they used Rye to anonymize the connection to a Monero wallet.
Monero, remind us what that is again?
It's a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin,
Yeah.
but it's focused on privacy, so it's often used by people who want to keep their financial transactions anonymous.
So it's like the perfect use case for something like Rye.
Exactly, and the demo shows that Rye can successfully anonymize the connection, making it much harder to track the user's activity.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But I do remember the article had a little disclaimer, right? Something about Rye not being a magic bullet for online privacy.
Right. It's important to remember that no tool can guarantee 100% anonymity. There are always ways for determined attackers to try and track you down, especially if you're not careful about how you use Tor.
So even with Rye, it's still important to be smart about online security.
Absolutely. One of the things the article emphasized was the importance of choosing your Tor nodes carefully.
Remind us what a node is again?
A node is like a relay point for your internet traffic. When you use Tor, your connection bounces between multiple nodes all over the world, making it harder to trace back to you.
Right, so the more nodes your connection goes through, the more anonymous you are.
Exactly. But the problem is that anyone can set up a Tor node, and some of those nodes could be run by malicious actors like hackers or government agencies.
So you could be sending your traffic through a node that's actually spying on you.
That's the risk, and that's why it's so important to be selective about which nodes you use. There are tools and resources out there that can help you identify trustworthy nodes.
It sounds like using Tor even with Rye is kind of a balancing act between anonymity and trust.
It is, and that's part of what makes it so fascinating. It's not just about the technology, it's about understanding the risks and making informed decisions about how you use it.
So it's not just about flipping a switch and suddenly you're invisible.
No, it's about being aware of the limitations of the tools and using them strategically to protect your privacy.
And that's where I think our listeners can really come in, because the article ends with a call for contributions to the Rye project, right?
Yeah, they're looking for developers, security researchers, and really anyone who's passionate about online privacy to help them make Rye even better.
So if you're a techie who wants to make a difference, this is your chance to get involved.
Absolutely. And even if you're not a programmer, you can still contribute by spreading the word about Rye, helping to educate others about online privacy, and supporting the development of tools that protect our freedom and security.
It's really inspiring to see a project like this taking on such an important issue, and it makes you wonder what the future of online privacy will look like if Rye is successful.
If Rye can deliver on its promises of a faster, safer, and more accessible Tor network, it could really change the game. It could empower more people to use Tor without fear of being tracked or censored.
It could be the start of a new era of truly private and secure internet access.
And that's something worth fighting for.
Absolutely. So to all our listeners out there, stay curious, stay informed, and keep diving into the technologies that are shaping our world. Until next time.
See you then.